It was a sight that stopped traffic and broke hearts. A tiny bobcat, standing guard over its fallen brother on a desolate highway, proving that the fiercest love can be found in the wildest of hearts. The Texas sun was a hot hand on the back of the land. It baked the asphalt of the long, straight highway. Heat shimmered above the road. It made the world look wavy and unreal. Martha Gable drove her old blue truck. The truck was sturdy and loyal. It had served her for many years. Martha was in her 70s. Her hair was white like cotton. Her hands, holding the steering wheel, were wrinkled but steady. She was a retired teacher. Every Tuesday, she drove to town for groceries. It was a simple routine. It gave her week a shape. Today was Tuesday. The road was empty. The sky was a vast, pale blue. Martha squinted. Something was on the side of the road. At first, she thought it was a bundle of rags. Or maybe, sadly, another animal that hadn't been fast enough. Such sights were common here. They always made her heart ache. She got closer. It wasn't one bundle. It was two, and one of them was moving. Martha slowed the truck. She pulled over onto the dusty shoulder. The engine rumbled, then went quiet. A cloud of dust settled. Now she could see them clearly. They were kittens, not house cats. They were wild. Their fur was a beautiful mix of tan and brown, spotted with black. Bobcats. They were just babies. One kitten lay perfectly still. Its small body was twisted at an odd angle. The other was alive. It paced a tight, anxious circle around its sibling. It was a frantic, heartbreaking dance. "Oh, you poor things," Martha whispered. Her hand went to her mouth. The living kitten stopped pacing. It lay down. It draped its body over the still one. It was a small, furry shield. It nudged its sibling with its nose. Again and again, as if to say, "Wake up. Please wake up." A huge 18-wheeler thundered past. The wind it created was a violent gust. It kicked up gravel and dust. The healthy kitten flattened itself. It pressed lower, covering its sibling more completely. It was a tiny, defiant act of protection. Tears welled in Martha's eyes. She had lived in the country her whole life. She knew wild animals were best left alone. They were unpredictable. They carried diseases. Their parents might be nearby, watching and angry. But she couldn't drive away. Not from this. Her hands trembled as she picked up her old cell phone. The screen was small and cracked. She fumbled with the buttons. She called information. She asked for a wildlife rescue. After being transferred twice, a calm voice answered. "Canyon Wildlife Clinic. Dr. Reed speaking." "Hello, doctor," Martha said, her own voice shaking. "My name is Martha Gable. I'm on the highway, about 30 miles from town. There are 2 bobcat kittens here, on the roadside." She took a deep breath. "One of them is hurt badly. I think it was hit by a car. The other one won't leave it. It's standing guard. I've never seen anything like it." Dr. Anna Reed had been a wildlife veterinarian for 15 years. She had heard every kind of frantic call, but there was a raw honesty in Martha's voice that cut through the usual panic. It spoke of something special. "Ma'am, can you stay there? Can you make sure no one gets near them?" Anna's voice was calm but urgent. "I'm on my way. I'm leaving right now. I'm not going anywhere," Martha said, her voice firm now. "These babies have me." Martha put her hazard lights on. The blinking lights were a steady, rhythmic pulse in the quiet landscape. For 40 long minutes, she sat and watched. She was their guardian now, too. A few cars slowed down, their drivers curious. Martha waved them on, shaking her head. "Move along. Nothing for you here." A state trooper car pulled up behind her. The blue and red lights flashed once, then went dark. A young officer got out. He was tall and wore crisp sunglasses. "Everything all right, ma'am?" he asked, his voice polite. Martha pointed. "Bobcat kittens. One is injured. The other is protecting it. I've called the wildlife vet. She's on her way." The officer, whose name tag read Carter, leaned against Martha's truck. He raised a pair of binoculars to his eyes. He watched for a long moment. "Well, I'll be," he said, lowering the binoculars. "You're right. He's standing right over him." "It's a she, I think," Martha said softly. "She has a gentler way about her. See how she licks his face? Like a mother would." "I've never seen that," Officer Carter admitted. "Siblings usually split up as soon as they can fend for themselves. Bobcats are solitary. These 2 aren't," Martha said. "They're a family. They waited together." The officer's presence was a comfort. It made the small roadside vigil feel official. It felt important. Finally, a white van appeared on the horizon. It grew larger and larger, a promise of help. The van pulled up, and Dr. Anna Reed stepped out. She was a woman in her 40s. She had kind, focused eyes and an air of quiet confidence. She didn't rush. She took in the scene from a distance. She assessed the highway, the kittens, the two people waiting. Then, she grabbed a carrier and a pair of thick gloves. She began to walk toward the kittens. She moved slowly, deliberately. "Hello, little ones," Anna said. Her voice was a low, soothing murmur. It was the kind of voice used to calm frightened things. The healthy kitten lifted its head. Its yellow eyes were huge. They were filled with fear, but also with a stubborn defiance. It let out a small, sharp hiss. It was the sound of a cornered animal, but it didn't run. It pushed itself even tighter against its brother. "It's okay," Anna said, her voice a soft hum. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help your brother." She crouched down. She was just a few feet away. The kitten watched her every move. Its body was tense. It was ready to fight or to flee, but it did neither. Then, something happened that none of them would ever forget. As Anna reached out a gloved hand, slowly, toward the injured kitten, the healthy one made a sound. It wasn't a hiss. It wasn't a growl. It was a soft, high-pitched cry. It sounded like a question. It sounded like a plea. The little bobcat looked right into Anna's eyes. Then it looked down at its still brother. Then it looked back at Anna. The message was as clear as any spoken word. "Please, help him." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She scooped up the injured kitten. It was a small, limp weight in her hands. He was unconscious. His breathing was shallow. One of his back legs was clearly broken. She placed him gently inside the carrier on a soft blanket. The healthy kitten watched, its gaze intense. It didn't run. It waited. "Come on, brave girl," Anna said, reaching for the second kitten. "You can come too. I'll take care of both of you. I promise." The little female let Anna pick her up. She didn't fight. She didn't struggle. As soon as she was in Anna's arms, she tried to crawl toward the carrier. She wanted to be with her brother. Anna placed her inside with him. Immediately, the female curled her body around the injured male. She resumed her position as his protector. Officer Carter shook his head slowly. "In all my years, I have never seen anything like that." "Neither have I," Anna admitted. She secured the carrier in her van. The weight of the moment felt heavy. "This is a first." Martha's face was wet with tears. "You'll let me know? You'll call me and tell me how they are." "Of course," Anna promised. She wrote down Martha's name and number. "You saved their lives. If you hadn't stopped, if you hadn't called, they wouldn't have made it." The drive back to the clinic was filled with a quiet tension. Anna drove fast, but her movements were smooth. From the back of the van, she could hear soft, chirping sounds. It was the female talking to her unconscious brother. At the clinic, Anna worked quickly. Her young assistant, Leo, helped her. Leo was smart and eager, and he loved animals. They brought the kittens into the examination room. The injured one was a male. He had a fractured tibia, a bad break in his lower leg. He had scrapes and bruises all over his body, a clear case of road rash. He also had a mild concussion. The female was perfectly healthy, but she was dangerously dehydrated and very thin. She had probably given up eating to stay by her brother's side. They were both about 4 months old. This was the age they should have been learning to be alone. "You two missed that lesson, didn't you?" Anna whispered. She prepped the male for surgery. The female watched from a small, clean cage. Her yellow eyes followed every movement. When Anna had to take the male into the operating room, the female began to cry. It was a loud, desperate sound. It filled the whole clinic. It was a sound of pure grief. "I'll stay with her," Leo said. His own face was filled with pity. An hour later, Leo came to the door of the operating room. "She won't eat," he said quietly. "She won't even drink. She just sits by the door of her cage. She's just staring at this door, waiting for him." The surgery was a success. Anna carefully pinned the broken bone. She cleaned and stitched the wounds. She gave the little male antibiotics to prevent infection and medication to manage the pain. He was a fighter. When she brought him back, he was still sleeping from the anesthesia. She placed him carefully in a larger recovery cage. The moment the cage door opened, the female rushed to him. She sniffed him from head to toe. Her little nose twitched, checking every inch of him. Then, satisfied he was real, she curled up against his warm body. A loud, rumbling purr started in her chest. It was the sound of relief. Anna watched them, a lump in her throat. This wasn't just sibling instinct. This was deeper. This was a bond she had only ever seen in humans. She decided to name them. The little female was a guardian, a protector, but Anna decided to call her Scout. She was always watching, always alert. The little male had been so brave through his ordeal, and he had been given a second chance at life. Anna called him Chance. Scout and Chance. The next few days were a slow journey back to health. Scout never left Chance's side. She would only leave him for a few moments to eat her food or use the litter box. And when she did, she would cry softly until she was back with him. 3 days after the accident, Chance finally opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Scout's face, hovering over him. He started to purr. The sound was weak, but it was there. Anna found herself spending all her free moments with them. She sat by their cage and talked to them. She was fascinated by their connection. Her job was to heal wild animals and return them to the wild. That was the goal, always. But Scout and Chance were different. They were a puzzle. "We can't release them," she told Leo one evening. They were watching the two kittens. Chance was now limping around the cage. Scout followed him like a shadow. "They're too used to us now. Scout let me handle her to save her brother. That's not normal. And Chance is comfortable with us. He's not afraid. That would be a death sentence for them in the wild. So what do we do?" Leo asked. "A zoo." Anna winced. The thought of these two living in a small concrete enclosure for the rest of their lives felt wrong. It felt like a punishment. They deserved more. They deserved freedom. And then there was their bond. Separating them was unthinkable. "I have an idea," Anna said slowly. The idea had been forming in her mind for days. "I have 10 acres of land behind my house. It's fully fenced. I've used it to rehabilitate larger animals before. What if I kept them there?" Leo's face brightened. "You mean like keep them? Not as pets?" Anna clarified. "Never as pets. They would be wild residents. They would have the space to run and hunt and be bobcats. But they would be safe. The fence would protect them. I could make sure they always had food and water. They could be wild, but safe." "It's perfect," Leo said. "They could have each other, and they would have a whole forest to themselves." The decision was made. It felt right. Anna spent the next 2 weeks preparing her property. She checked every inch of the high fence, reinforcing it. She built several small, wooden shelters deep within the trees. She installed cameras so she could watch them without disturbing them. Martha Gable, the retired teacher, had been calling every few days for an update. When Anna told her the plan, Martha was overjoyed. She sent a generous check to help pay for the fencing and their food. Officer Carter did the same. The story had spread in their small community, and donations came in from others who had been touched by the story of the two bobcats. The day Anna brought Scout and Chance to their new home was filled with hope and anxiety. Would they like it? Would they finally feel safe? She drove them to her house. She carried their carrier to her back porch, which overlooked the 10 acres of woods. She opened the carrier door. Then she stepped back. She sat down on her porch steps and waited. Scout came out first. She moved with a slinking, cautious grace. Her head was high, her ears swiveling, taking in every sound, every smell. Her yellow eyes scanned the vast new space. Then she turned back to the carrier. She made a soft chirping sound. It was the same sound she had made on the highway, a sound of encouragement. Chance limped out. His leg was healed, but he would always have a slight limp. He immediately pressed his side against Scout's. They stood together for a long time. They were two small figures against a large, wild backdrop. They were taking all in. Then, Scout took a tentative step forward into the grass. She looked back at Chance. She waited. He followed. Together, side by side, they walked toward the trees. They disappeared into the shadows of their new kingdom. "They'll probably stay deep in the woods," Anna told Leo, who had come to watch. "They'll avoid the house. In a few weeks, they'll be fully wild again. Just safe wild." But the bobcats had their own ideas. That night, Anna was woken by a faint sound. She went to her back window. She looked out at the porch, and there they were. Scout and Chance were curled up together on her old wooden porch swing. Scout was gently grooming Chance's ears. They had come back. From that day on, it became their ritual. They spent their days in the woods. Anna would see them on her cameras, exploring, playing, and learning to hunt. She often found the remains of squirrels and rabbits, evidence of their growing skills. They were wild. They were free. But every evening, as the sun began to set, they would emerge from the trees. They would walk to the house and settle on the porch. It was as if they were checking in. They were letting her know they were okay. They were home. Months turned into a year. The kittens grew into sleek, powerful young adults. Their coats were thick and beautiful. Their muscles were strong. They moved with a silent, deadly grace. But they never lost their bond with each other. And they never lost their strange, quiet trust in Anna. They are wild, Anna would explain to the few friends she showed them to. They do everything wild bobcats do. They just choose to do it here. And they choose to let me be part of their territory. The most powerful proof of their bond came on a cold winter morning. The ground was hard with frost. Anna was drinking her coffee on the porch, wrapped in a thick blanket. Suddenly, she heard a terrible noise from the back of the property. A snarling, vicious sound. She grabbed her binoculars. Her heart pounded. Near the back fence, she saw Scout. Her body was rigid. Every hair on her fur was standing on end. She was facing a coyote. The coyote was lean and hungry. It must have found a weak spot in the fence. It was twice Scout's size. Behind Scout, standing on the defensive, was Chance. His bad leg made him slower. It made him vulnerable. Without a second thought, Anna ran inside and grabbed the rifle she kept for emergencies. She didn't want to use it, but she would if she had to. She ran toward the confrontation. But before she was even halfway there, she saw something that made her stop in her tracks. The coyote took a step forward, its lips curled back in a snarl. Scout did not back down. She let out a scream. It was a sound Anna had never heard before. It was a terrifying, blood-curdling shriek of pure rage. It was the sound of a mother defending her child. Then she launched herself at the coyote. She was a flash of fur and fury. She moved with such speed and ferocity that the larger animal was completely stunned. It yelped in surprise and pain. It turned and fled, scrambling back through the hole in the fence it had made. Scout chased it all the way to the fence line. She watched it disappear into the distance. Then she turned and walked back to Chance. She began to lick his head, checking him all over for injuries, just like she had done on the highway a year ago. When Anna finally reached them, her heart was still hammering in her chest. The two bobcats looked at her. There was no fear in their eyes. There was only trust. They let her check them both over. They were unharmed. Then they followed her back to the porch. They sat with her while she called someone to repair the fence. She protected him, Anna said to Martha on the phone later that day. Her voice was filled with awe. Just like that first day. She would die for him. I truly believe that. And he would do the same for her. Martha replied, "You didn't just save two animals, Dr. Reed. You saved a love story." The years passed. Scout and Chance became quiet legends in the small Texas community. Word of their story spread. Photographers came to take pictures of them from a distance. Researchers asked to study their unique relationship. Anna allowed it, but only if they respected the bobcat's space and wildness. Scout and Chance were tolerant of the attention, but when they had had enough, they would simply melt back into their woods. Anna never tried to tame them further. She never put a collar on them or treated them like pets. They were not pets. They were companions. They were two wild souls who had chosen to share their world with the human who had saved them. On warm evenings, Anna would sit on her porch swing. Scout and Chance would often lie on the porch steps, just a few feet away. Sometimes they played, batting at each other's tails. Sometimes they groomed each other with a quiet tenderness. And sometimes they would just lie together, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Scout's head would often be resting on Chance's back, a posture of protection that had never changed. In those quiet moments, Anna felt a profound peace. She knew she had done the right thing. "You two saved each other," she would whisper to them. "I just opened the door." Their story challenged what people thought they knew about animals. It made them question the lines we draw between instinct and emotion, between animal and human. Was it just instinct that drove Scout, or was it something more? For Anna, for Martha, for Officer Carter, and for Leo, there was no debate. It was love, a fierce, loyal, and unbreakable love. It was a love that existed in the wild, and they had been lucky enough to see it. When Martha Gable passed away peacefully at the age of 82, her obituary spoke of her life as a teacher and a mother. But it also included a small line. She was a woman who once stopped on a lonely highway to guard two tiny bobcat kittens an act of compassion that started a story that touched the world. Officer Carter, now a captain in the state troopers, still tells the story of Scout and Chance to his new recruits. He uses it as a lesson that protecting and serving isn't always about people. Leo, inspired by Anna, went on to open his own small wildlife rescue center. He built it on the same principles: respect the wildness, but honor the bond. And Anna? She continued her work. She healed hundreds of other animals. But she never again saw a pair like Scout and Chance. They were a singular event in her life, a beautiful, wild miracle. They lived long, full lives in their 10-acre sanctuary. They were never apart. They were always together. Scout, the guardian. Chance, the survivor. They remained wild, but they also remained connected to the human world that had shown them kindness. Sometimes, on a quiet morning, Anna still sits on her porch. The old swing still creaks. She looks out the woods, and she remembers. She remembers two small, furry bodies on the side of a highway. She remembers a tiny protector who refused to give up. And she remembers that love knows no species. It knows no boundaries. It beats in wild hearts and in human hearts. And the most important thing we can ever do is to recognize it, to honor it, and to give it a safe place to live.